Good afternoon, everyone. Good
Good,
afternoon. Good
good
afternoon.
afternoon.
So glad to have you all here with us on site as well as online. We certainly thank God for this day and for this opportunity to present to you all what we call Empowerment Series. The basis behind this is really, really simple. What we want to do here at Blessed Church, and let me start that off because I have to be aware that there may be some, as I'm looking at very familiar faces in the audience, but there may be a few that do not know me. I am Pastor Brad, and I have the distinct privilege to be the pastor here at Blessed Church. Blessed Church is a excellent church, if I don't say so myself, here in St. Louis, Missouri, and in general, and even more specifically, anchored in Hazelwood, serving Ferguson community as our mission field. So, what we want to do here today, as far as the empowerment series is considered, we want to use this platform to allow community experts, the experts that we know and love, to come in and share with us, not only here at Blessed Church, but our friends and family, those that are in our sphere of influence, our networking circles, to come and share with us on specific topics that are helpful to us and you all. So I pray that this will do you well. I pray that this session will encourage you, but as well empower you. And let me give you a little bit more background. I do suffer, or I do ask you all to suffer. I may be at times maybe too transparent, but this is, I'll tell you what's on my heart. As a black man and as a church that serves the African American community, what has been impressed on me over the years, if you look at the statistics, the social basis statistics or economic or financial, whatever statistic, we tend to be, not maybe not always, but we tend to be near the bottom of every good statistic and at
Yeah.
the top of every bad statistic.
Yeah.
And that disturbs me. I hope just hearing that does something to you as well. And maybe, just maybe you can see the reason behind this empowerment series. Because the question is, it lies on all of us. If that's what you know,
Right.
if that's what you know, that African Americans are near the bottom of every good statistical category and near the top of every bad one, then what are you going to do about it? Well, this is our answer to that. Let us invite the professionals that we know and love here to share with us what they have gathered over their years of experience, their years of training, such that we can all benefit and prayerfully make ourselves better. That's really what it's all about. Empowering and increasing and the level of success for each and every last one of us. So let me not have you all wait any longer. So who we have in front of us today, or who will present for us today, is none other than my friend, my brother, Mr. Ryan Griffin. He is an HR professional, and I say that in the heaviest of senses. He has progressed through multiple companies here in the St. Louis area, up the ranks in HR, has spent 15 plus years in the field honing his career. He does have a great network, and I feel privileged not only to have him here, but to have him share with us what we can do from a career development standpoint. And I trust that I'm not the only one that wants to see my career, wants to be the best at whatever I do. And any help I can get, especially from those who are spent time in the field, to let me know what I can do to improve. And anybody else that has not worked in HR that just wants to know what's going on behind that curtain.
Yeah.
Why is it that I didn't get my rest? Well, maybe that's not a question. I'm just saying. Anyway, so let's welcome Mr. Ryan Griffin, the father of two beautiful girls, the husband of one wonderful wife, and my friend and my brother, Mr. Ryan Griffin.
Appreciate it.
Bless you,
Appreciate it.
man.
Appreciate you.
Listen,
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's it is so good to be here on this Saturday, and it's so good to. Let me speak up. Oh, there we go. Are we good? Oh, my bad. We good? Okay. Sorry about that. Say it. All right. It is so good to be here, just with familiar faces, who I call family, and then individuals that I just met. And I think what Pastor Buchanan was saying is just so critical, especially for us in the African American community. And so, for those that know me, I'm going to be fairly transparent today because I feel like in order for us to really make moves, we have to be. I think for so many times we've kind of skirted the issue and not said what really is happening or behind the scenes or sometimes right in front of our face. And so I'm going to be fairly transparent. I know we're going to have time at the end for questions, but I ask you, if you've got questions while I'm going throughout this, please feel free, to ask me. So, all right. So let me get started. Can you go? I'll grab this. Hold on. Let me go here. There we go. Hold on. Yeah, you can go on that slide for me. You can go on that slide too. Thank you so much. All right, so Brad did just a wonderful job of introducing me, so I appreciate that, Brad. But a little bit about me. I currently work at an organization called Worldwide Technology. It is the largest Black-owned technology solutions provider here in the United States, headquartered right here in St. Louis, Missouri, in Maryland Heights. I have the distinct pleasure and honor of serving as the diversity and university relations leader there at Worldwide Technology. So basically what that means is I'm trying to ensure that our pipelines of talent for early career opportunities are diverse. So basically what that means is historically Black I'm trying to ensure that our pipelines of talent institutions for early and even those PWIs, but making sure we're reaching those Association of Black Collegians or Hispanic Student Associations or Asian American Student Associations, because that's where you'll see the talent really be able to permeate the organization and move up throughout and across, okay? As Brad mentioned, I've been in this field for 15 plus years, although I'm only 25, and really this third bullet point, I'm a strong, and I should spell this out, but DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion, strong advocate and passionate about talent attraction and retention. We'll talk a little bit about successfully changing your career. And so I'll bring up some of my personal experience of how I've kind of morphed it into this to this diversity and inclusion field. And then I think my most important job, obviously besides, serving the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, but is being married to my wife, Serena Wilson Griffin, for 17 years, will be 18 years in December. And then Kennedy and Clark, my two daughters who are 14 and 9. So, all right. Thanks, Nikki. So here are, I guess you could say, our learning objectives or agenda, whatever you want to call it, right? And let me preface this by saying, I know we have an hour, and this hour is going to go quick. Each of these topics could be a session on its own, right? So we're just going to skirt the surface. And so, hopefully I do a good enough job, I can come back and we can do some more in-depth stuff. When we talk about personal branding, this is something that's a passion of mine. So I'm thinking about maybe, doing some vlogs or blogs about interviewing tips, resume writing. So I say all that to say, if it doesn't seem like we get as deep as as what you might want to, it's just because of the timing, okay? But believe me, I hope you all walk away with some really great and valuable information. So we're gonna start with building your career path, how to change your career. This one, I'm super passionate about all this, but career tips for diverse professionals. Personal branding, what is your brand, right? Who is Ryan Griffin, right? Who is Jessica Harper? What is your personal brand? Resumes, this is so critical. Your social media presence, right? We'll get into that. And then acing your interview, okay? So, and I think it's important, it's fine. And I think it's important that we have these type of conversations because Pastor Buchanan mentioned earlier, around the statistics, where it always seems like we're at the lower end of the bad statistics, the higher end, vice versa. Good statistics, higher end of the bad statistics. So we make up 13% of the U.S. population, right, as African American individuals, but we only account for 8% of employees in professional roles. So when you look at your Fortune 500 companies, Black executives only hold 3.2% of those roles. And from a CEO standpoint, it's less than 1%, right? So something is not happening for us, right? And so we need to uncover that. All right. So let's talk about building your career path, right? So it's really going to all begin with purpose. I think the critical thing we have to realize and remember is we're not created just merely to work and pay bills, right? We all have a purpose on our life, and it's children of the King, as Christians. I mean, we can go there, right? But we all have a purpose on our life. And until we find what that purpose is and to pursue that purpose, we'll just be kind of wallowing. So I like to tell people just at the beginning of the day, when you're talking about your career, really kind of know what it is that you want to do, but also put the work into trying to figure that out, right? And I think it's important to know that it can change over the course of time. What you went to school for, whether it's college, trade school that you just picked up, could change over time. So have a clear vision, right? So the best way to predict your future is to create it. I think this is important, and a lot of us, we don't do this. Set career goals. We kind of have that goal in terms of, I want to graduate with my degree, whether it's a college degree, trade school, whatever. So, because I believe, everything is not for everyone. So whatever that, degree is, and then we just kind of expect for things to happen. I've heard so many of us, I'll try to stay on track, but I've heard so many of us say, okay, I've got my degree, all of this is supposed to open up for me. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It's going to take networking. It's going to take conversations. It's going to take mentorship. And I think for some of us that are in the professional settings already, I think we can attest to that, right? But I see so many of us get discouraged. I've spent all this money, or I've spent all this time getting this 4-year degree or getting this technical, and I still can't find employment, or I still am not doing what I want to do. So there's steps and processes to that. I think it's important also, you want to develop those skills and that knowledge that you have in your career setting. Career mentorship is so critical, right? And this is something I feel as Black folks, we have struggled with for so long. We get into an organization and we just have our head down and we just work. We don't take the time to go talk to Nikki over here, or Brad, or Sister Kim, or even, some of our, less melanated counterparts, right? We just work, and then we're expecting that we're going to be tapped on the shoulder for that promotion, for that raise. So we'll get into that. Building professional networks. It's important that you have mentors and you network within your organization, but it's also important that you network outside of your organization, right? Worldwide technology, it might not be my ending stop. Boeing might not be Brad's ending stop, but you want to have those networks outside of your organization so you can talk to someone at BJC. You can talk to someone at Edward Jones about what they're doing. Is there opportunity there? And then certainly studying everything related to our career path. So we all go to the doctor. We all go, hopefully to the dentist. They are continuously, they are continuously, or we should, they are continuously studying, right? Because things are changing. I think sometimes for us in the business world or whatever, we feel like we've got that degree and then we're done, right? I'm an HR professional, I'm done. Stuff has changed so much since I graduated back in 2003 till now. So it's a continuous life cycle of learning. And so I think it's important that we continue to study, what's the latest and greatest, I'm just throwing some stuff out, in compliance, right? There are different certifications and testing that you all have to do. What's the latest and greatest in HR? What flew, 20 years ago, we can't do now, right? So it's not just healthcare professionals that have to, because we want to make sure they're staying on top of their stuff, right? But it's not just them that have to continue to study as well. So, I did that. There we go. Yes. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Hi. When Brad said question, I was like, I'm in trouble. What? Am I not? I'm like, my mic is here. I'm speaking here. I'm looking at said to make sure I'm good. Look, what's up? All right. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, right. So, I have a question looking at career goals.
Yeah.
And developing the skill and knowledge. How do you set realistic career goals for yourself? Because, let's say, since we were talking about Boeing, Brad has a career goal to be CEO of Boeing.
Right.
That's a career goal.
Exactly.
It just may not be realistic.
Exactly.
So how do you
set those?
Develop something that is within your wheelhouse?
Yep,
or
definitely.
within your ability?
I think that's a really great question. Thank you so much for asking that. it goes back to kind of that studying and kind of researching what is that career path to get you there, right? So many times, unfortunately, and I'm not going to pick on millennials, but so many times, unfortunately, we feel that once we get this degree, that automatically we're going to be a leader in 2 to 3 years. If you study the things in the role that you're going into or in the career path, you should hopefully see there are levels to it, right? And then it goes to that point of being able to build your network and have mentors. Because I guarantee you, those people that have become CEO or even senior leaders, they've done it through networking. They've done it through mentorship. Obviously, they've had to do good at their current role and bring that their ability, but they've also studied as well. So that continuous learning. Okay, I want to be a senior leader in compliance. Let me go get this Series 7, right? I'm going to be making up some tests, so don't judge me. Let me go get this Series 4. Let me go get this Series 61. But it's having a realistic view of what it is or what it takes to get to that level, right? And so many times, unfortunately, and once again, I'm going to be transparent, we don't say that to our young people coming up or even to us. We say, get your degree and then everything in life will be great. We don't talk about the continuous training that you have to take. I'm 41 years old. I don't necessarily want to go back to school, but I know if I want to get this other type of job, I need this certification or I might need to go get this degree, right? It's not just going to happen through osmosis. So, did that answer your question? All right. Okay. Next slide for me, Nikki, please. Okay. So, how to successfully change your career, right? So, there are many different reasons why we change our career. Money, right? Stress, better work-life balance, a new challenge, and then sometimes you're just no longer passionate about the work that you once did, right? And so I wanted to make sure it is never too late to change your career field, right? So a couple people I wanted to bring up because I struggle with this. Once again, I'll be very transparent. I struggle with this in terms of sometimes I felt like I wasn't where I was supposed to be in terms of my career, and I felt like it was too late for me. But let me tell you, and these are just a few people I chose. We all know Vera Wang. She's a fashion designer. So in my research for this, I didn't know Vera Wang was a figure skater and a journalist before she became this award-winning fashion designer. She didn't start designing till she was 40. I didn't know that. So 40 plus, I'm feeling good, right? Okay? I'm okay, right? We all know Walmart. We will not talk about the Walmart in West Florissant. But Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, he was 44 when he founded Walmart. So, and this is not, and I know we might have some younger folks, watching live stream. This is not to say that if you're 25 plus and you're doing it, that's great. But I'm just saying for us more seasoned professionals who sometimes might suffer with that, I'm not where I should be or where I thought I would be, it's okay. There's still time. I think sometimes, and believe me, these lists are great because I was on one of them and I aspired, but the 30 under 30, the 40 under 40, those lists are great. But sometimes what it does, it kind of like, okay, once you're after that, what happens? Like, I'm not great anymore, right? And so let's just use my career path. So we're going to go through some examples. And like I said, I'll just be fairly transparent. And I'm not to say that I'm the end all be all. There are others, that have certainly had a greater career trajectory, a greater career path. But when I was looking at this, I was like, okay, I kind of did do this, right? So really quick, I started off in retail. I started off as a buyer at Macy's Midwest because I love fashion. And I just had this idea of I wanted to go to Milan, go to New York, buy all these clothes, whatever. I found out very quick that's not what it was, right? So, you bought the product for that spring line, that winter line, but once you got back to the desk or the office, it was just numbers on a spreadsheet. How many khaki blazers are we gonna send to 82 stores? West County is your A door. Jamestown Mall, when it was there, was your C door. And then it was just about projection and numbers. And although I'm good at that, that is not what I was passionate about, right? And so what I was able to do is they sent us out to do career fairs because we were part of a training program. And I realized that when I was talking to people about career planning and joining, I said, I like HR. This is what I want to do. And so that's how I kind of went into the HR realm. And then being a Black professional in human resources, seeing, unfortunately, how many of us were getting passed over for promotions or weren't even getting into the door. That's where the D&I space came in, right? Like I was able to kind of morph it in terms of I'm always going to be a recruiter at the end of the day. I'm always looking for top talent, but how can I make sure that I'm being an advocate for those underrepresented groups to get into some of these companies and to get into some of these fields that I had never heard of, even though I have been in all these upward bound programs and things like that. Okay. Next slide for me, Nikki, please. So I think the first thing that you have to do when you're talking about like wanting to change your career is assess your skills and interests, right? Determine what your values and skills are, and are they being addressed and met through your current career? Certainly there are free online tools that can help you do that. Google is a wonderful thing. And so I think that's the biggest thing. Too many times we're like, I want to change my career. What's your skill set? What do you want to do, right? You got to assess those skills and interests. Consider alternative skills. I think one thing, if I could leave with us when we're talking about this, is really have to become one with yourself and really have some strong self-talk with yourself about this. So brainstorming ideas for those career alternatives, researching career options. It's not just going to fall in your lap, right? Certainly certain opportunities, you're like, I've never heard of that, but what do I need to do? What do I need to try to figure out to get that career? Certainly talk with people. I mean, we have a good core group here. Talk with your family, talk with your friends, talk to people like me to help you do that. Next slide for me, Nikki. This is crucial. I know sometimes people might feel a little weird doing this, but reaching out for informational interviews. And so basically what an informational interview is finding someone in that career path or in that field that you might be interested in, right? And it's reaching out to that person or reaching out to that individual saying, hey, you know, I'm interested in learning more about X career. You will find more often than not that people will take the time to do it because more often than not, people like to talk about themselves, okay? I'm just being real. Present company included. You ask me about D&I, I'm gonna talk about it because I'm passionate about it, right? And so I know sometimes for those of us that aren't as extroverted or we feel that, you know, we're getting on someone's nerves, more often than not, they will take that time to chat. And I think it's important because I think so many times we have a TV version of what a career is, right? I have an idea of what compliance professionals do, but it wasn't until I talked with compliance professionals truly, and I was like, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? And I don't say that negatively because that's a great skill set to have. I just knew I couldn't do it. The level of rigor, the level of detail, that just wasn't for me. But just going off the TV version, I was like, oh yeah, I could do that, right? Same thing with interior designing. I have an idea of what interior designers do. Netflix has some really good interior design shows. I don't know if you watch them, but I'll be thinking of you when I watch it. I just watched one. For those, I'm talking to my good friend. We grew up together on the camera, okay? But I have an idea of what they do, Nikki. But I be seeing everything that you do. I'm like, oh yeah, it's more than just, oh, this color looks great. This color is great. You nailing stuff. You bringing up wood and stuff. I can't do that. That's not my gift. It's not my gift, right? You know, I'm just being real. And so I say all that to say is reach out to that person and get a real good, realistic view of what it, because by doing that, I'm like, no, I'm not interested. I'm interested in watching it on TV, but I can't do it, right? Next slide for me, please. Same thing. It's kind of on the same vein. Spend time job shadowing. So you've talked with this person about what it is that they do. Ask the question, even if they're not in your company, do you think, you know, there's any time that I would be able to come in and kind of watch what you do? Once again, it's knowing, okay, I have an idea of what I think they might do Monday through Friday. Oh, you still working on Saturday? Oh, wait, Sunday after church? I don't know if that's what I want to do, right? So you spending that time job shadowing because really that's going to give you a realistic idea. And that's not to say And I know I'm joking in terms of, oh, I don't want to do that. But you can really see like, okay, I'm still interested in this. Okay, yeah, I got to nail stuff. I got to paint. I got to haul. But I'm still interested in this. I still got to get this certification. I got to do this. I'm still interested. So, make sure you spend time job shadowing as well. Same deal. I won't go too much in this, but volunteer, right? People are always looking for help, right? So volunteer in that field of interest, once again, to get that hands-on experience. Certainly there are career fields where, I don't think I can go, volunteer in compliance. You know what I mean? But certainly if you have an opportunity, try to volunteer in that field of interest, once again, to see if that's something you want to do. All right, next slide. All right, this is critical, and I'm going to be transparent. This is where a lot of us suffer from, because we feel like we done once we've got that degree, once we've got that certification. I am done. I've got my bachelor's degree. I even went and got my master's degree. I am done. No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. Take a class, right? So there's always something being offered, different educational opportunities that can really help bridge your background into maybe your new career set. So maybe it's taking an evening course at a community college or at a college. Sometimes it's not about, taking a series of courses to get a degree. It might be, you know what? I want to learn more about this D&I space. Let me go take a diversity and inclusion course at this particular school to get some of that skill set so I can bring that back to my organization, right? Look for ways to develop new skills in your current job. And so there are programs. There's a program here in St. Louis, but nationwide, called Launch Code. It takes it's female minority-owned organization where it takes individuals through a rigorous, I believe, 10 to 12-week program in technology, whether it's coding, whether it's JavaScript or network development, etc. And so what these individuals are able to do is once they have that degree, they're able to go into these new career fields or these new career paths with this, right? There's something called Empower as well that does the same thing. So I think it's important that you, like I said, upgrade your skills. You've got to continue to take that time to do that. All right, next slide for me. So I really enjoyed putting together these couple slides because I think this is something that we all kind of need to remember. So seeking out employee resource groups. So for those that might not know what an employee resource group is, a typical, hopefully at progressive forward-thinking organizations, employee resource groups are a group of individuals that are similar to you in terms of background, but it's not exclusive to you, right? So there's a group at my organization called Shades, which is the African American Resource Group that we're able to join. But it's important because there's already a built-in network there within that group. Don't be afraid to zoom out on your job search. Once again, I think sometimes when we're thinking about it, we get very narrow in terms of what we want to do. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, for us as Black professionals, we don't dare or allow ourselves to dream, right? We kind of see it as, I can only do this. What is the next step? When you see others are able, like, they started HR with me. How are they in marketing, right? Or how are they in this field? So let's not be afraid to dream and zoom out. Understand what questions you should be asking and what matters to you. Find your people. Find your people. Find those individuals within your organization that you can have real talk with, right? And bounce things off. Be like, you know what? I got this email from my boss, and am I taking it the wrong way? And hopefully you have someone you can trust. Be like, no, you tripping. Sometimes in email things come across, harsher than what they are, or no, you're not tripping. You need to address this, right? So it's important to have someone you can bounce things off, right? Don't underestimate the value of a great boss, even if they don't look like you, okay? I know this is hard, right? But I gave the statistics earlier. There's not many of us, unfortunately, at this level, at this level up here. So unfortunately, there are going to be others that don't look like us. But if you've got a great boss, or what I call an ally, right? It's important for them to have that, because unfortunately, that's what's going to have to happen, or is what we're going to have to do. But I tell people, But do that, but still be authentically yourself. Okay? Have those conversations, have those crucial conversations with your boss so they understand who you are as a minority, who you are as a diverse professional. I remember specifically, what was it? When Michael Brown was murdered and everything was going on in Ferguson. And I went into work and just, you all remember the time, it was just heavy. It was just tense, but it was heavy. And it affected all of us within the community, so I'm not trying to downplay it, but especially as a black man, it was just heavy. My wife was praying with me, like, please be careful. I'm sure, because we were just being targeted. And I remember I had my one-on-one with my boss, and I love her to death. We're still cool. A white woman. She was like, how's it going? I said, yeah, she was clueless, right? I said, it's not going so well, Lori. And she was like, what's going on? I just laughed. And I had a great relationship with her, so I was able to I said, Lori, do you not know what's happening? Do you not what's going on? Oh, yeah, I saw that on the news. I was like, that's like down the street, right, from us. And so I had to, so this goes to being authentic to yourself. I had to educate her on what was going on and the history and why that was so heavy and why I wasn't my normal perky Ryan Griffin self. And so even now to this day, we're able to have candid conversations around diversity and inclusion. And it wasn't that she didn't care. It just didn't affect her. Right. She wasn't aware, right? Never lose sight of your own potential. This is going back to what I said earlier. Dare yourself to dream, right? Dare yourself to, I know I can do more, right? But it's important, you can do more, but put the steps in place for you to do more. It's not just going to happen. It's not just going to be given to you. All right, next slide. Fight imposter syndrome with self-affirmations. So I'm going to talk about it, but let me read the definition of imposter syndrome, right? It's the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own effort or skills, okay? So basically what imposter syndrome is saying is you feel like I'm at this leadership role, I'm at this compliance role, I'm this great interior designer. You feel like an imposter. You feel like I'm going to be found out. And I can tell you, like again, I'm transparent. As I've gotten older, I'm just very transparent. I struggled and I continue to struggle with this. And so how I'll get over that, once again, I pray, right? Because I know that God didn't put me here for me to fail. But also self-affirmations. We got to be afraid not to talk, big up ourselves, right? It's okay. I'm a big Michael Jackson fan. I put on Michael Jackson bad because I am bad, right? So I am. When I go and have to present, like I'm presenting in front of family, right? But when I go have to present in front of senior leaders in my organization that does not look like me, that does not have hair like me, I have to big up myself because unfortunately some of them don't want to see me there, right? But that's okay because I'm here, and so I put on my gospel music too, y'all. Don't worry. But sometimes you just need what you need, right? Seek out mentors from different backgrounds. So once again, it goes back to it's important to find your people, right? But it's okay to find others that don't look like you, right? It's important. And one thing I've learned just through this thing called life, there is something that we can always find in common with each other. For us here in St. Louis, Cardinals, Blues, it's easy. You know what? I'll just sometimes, and I have great respect for hockey. I'm just not a fan, but I have great respect for it. It's just not for me. But I'll put it on the news. I'm like, okay, let me see what the Blues are doing because I know my boss likes the Blues. And so that was a way for me to interact with him. Like, did you see what the Blues? I don't care less. You know what I mean? But that was a way for us to bond, right? I remember I had a boss, and there was a television show years ago called Revenge. She was from Australia, 20 years older than me. We had nothing in common, but we both watched this show. And we would start our one-on-ones talking about the show. And what it did is it led for us to have more easier conversation. You see what I'm saying? So there's always something you can find. You might have to dig a little bit. There's always something you can find. And then let's just remember, there's nothing wrong. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brad.
Question for you, sir.
Yeah.
So you mentioned mentors a few times here.
Yeah.
One, would you recommend that everyone should have more than one mentor? And if so, what would be the minimum?
Yeah.
2, 3.
Yeah, that's a great percent. So I recommend, and I don't take credit for this. I learned this from someone. I have like a board of directors or a board of mentors, right? So 3 to 5, right? So I've got mentors that are at the same level as me that I'm able to bounce things off of that might be in my organization. I have individuals that might be in a higher level position in another organization because I want to see what they do in this type of organization. And then I just have those personal mentors where if I'm just having a bad day or a crummy day, I'm able to just have real talk with them. So I think Pastor Buchanan, that was a really great point that you brought up. It's you can have more than one, right? Especially, and I tell this, to my wife and other African American females, have that consortium of Black women, because what you all have to deal with in the corporate environment is totally different than what I have to deal with as a Black man, right? So being able to have that consortium of women, Black women, because it's different. So it's important. But yeah, have multiple mentors. Thank you, B. And then lastly, it's not just what you know and who you know, but also who knows you and what you're known for, right? About your brand. Next slide for me, Nikki. So that leads us going right into your personal branding. What are people saying about you when you leave the room? Right? If I'm in a conference room with 7 other people, and I have to go take a call, or I gotta go pick up the kids, what are they saying about you when you leave the room? If someone says, "Oh yes, Ryan didn't do this project," are you gonna have someone that can advocate for you? Like, no, that doesn't sound like Ryan, right? No, that doesn't sound like him, right? And so too many times we have our head down and we don't think about this. So that's what I want to make sure we talk about with personal branding. Next slide for me. The importance of building a brand. It's the process of building your personal reputation. What are you known for, right? It can be related to school, family, interests. Jeff Bezos, Amazon, he's a rich guy. He might not be the nicest guy, but he makes a lot of money, right? But he said it best. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, right? So help you, what's that personal stamp? So they know, my boss knows that if there's a spreadsheet that needs to be done, if there's a presentation that has to be given, that I'm his go-to, right? So he knows that about me. People that have interacted with me across my career know that about me. And so if you hear something like Ryan Griffin doesn't like to talk to people, y'all know that's a lie. Because I'm talking to people right now, right? So once again, is knowing what are people saying about you when you're not in the room. Next slide for me. Let's go one more, sorry. All right, and so, yeah, of course.
When you talk about personal brand,
yeah.
I'm just sitting here thinking how sometimes you have to implement extra measures,
yeah.
do extra things, just so your brand can be known,
yeah.
because you're fighting against stereotypes,
yes.
you're fighting against prejudices,
yeah.
you're fighting against people who already have you on a certain level, and,
yeah.
and that you are not capable
yeah.
of going beyond that level. So sometimes you have to push a little harder and do a little more, just to make sure your brand is known.
So true. That's a really great point. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Because I think, unfortunately, and this is not a knock on the generation before us or how things were done. I talk about this all the time with my friends. I think, and I did this really the first 10 years of my career. If I go in, do a great job, head down, I'm going to be rewarded, with a promotion or whatever. But what I tell my team all the time is, just because you're doing a great job at your specific role, they'll just see you as that, right? They just saw me as Ryan the recruiter. They knew that I was good at what I did, but in order for me to get to this next level, there was more that I had to do. I had to take on this project. I had to make sure I spoke up in this meeting, right? And so it goes back to the point in which you made. Sometimes we have to be a bit uncomfortable. There are meetings where I do not want to say anything, right? But I would see that others that didn't look like me were getting promoted, and they had this distinct ability to be able to just say something in the meeting and make a point, and then, oh yeah, what Brad said was really great. You know what I mean? And so I say that to my team all the time, being that active listener, that active participant, or like I said, even when you don't want to say something, find something, make a point to be made, because then they'll know, like, Ryan was active, he was engaged, you know what I mean? Sometimes take on that additional project because you want to be sure that they see you as more than just what you are, right? It's kind of like the same thing with like administrative assistant, right? He or she does a great job answering the phones, planning, calendaring, whatever. I see that person as a project manager, right? Because that's essentially what they're doing. But if they're just only doing that, that's how they're seen, right? Adam, the administrative assistant to Brad Buchanan, senior leader at Boeing, right? What Adam's going to have to do is be able to take additional projects, additional steps. One, what Adam's going to have to do is make sure his boss and other people know what his career aspirations are, because that's another thing that we suffer from. We don't talk about what we want our aspirations to be. We just automatically assume that people are going to know, right? So when you're having those development conversations with your leader, have that real talk. Like in 3 to 5 years, no, in 1 or 2 years, I would like to be doing this. How can you help me get there? It's not a matter of can I get there? How can you help me? Because guess what? As a leader, leaders are being evaluated on how they develop their folks. Am I correct? Right? You got to meet your goals and everything. But if your folks are just wallowing, you're not being a great leader. So, any questions? Right on. Yeah.
So thank you for confirmation on that because yesterday I attended our first business diversity initiative program.
Yeah.
And
SLBDI?
Yep.
I was cohort 9.
So
Yeah.
cohort 17.
Okay.
But, so we were talking about monthly stakeholder sheets that we would give to our supervisors moving forward. Like these are the things that I've done instead of waiting for them to see the things that you've done, showing them the things that you've done, taking that list in, and how do you work to develop, your skill set, or what do you need to work through from that. And I was like, that was so helpful for me.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking in my mind like I've done all of this and they're not seeing it,
Right.
know. So how can I write this out and how can I show you on paper these projects that we've done? So I thought that was very interesting to hear you just say like, 1 or 2 years, this is what I want to do. How can we get here? And I think that ties in great.
No, I think I'm so glad that you made that statement. Was that Lethea Owens' class that you went to? She's great. Because I think we assume, and I tell my team this, we assume that our leaders know everything that we're doing every step of the day. And then we get mad. We're like, didn't you know I worked on this, and this? Not necessarily. They just knew it got done, right? They just knew it got done. They might not necessarily know about the innovations that you put with this project or the additional things. So to your point, I go to my one-on-ones and, depending on what your boss is or whatever, how formal you want to be, but I'll go in like, I was working on this project. Did you know? Because I'm making sure he knows what I'm working on. Because once again, it goes back to what are people saying about you in the room. When he goes and talks to his boss or his or her boss, he's able to say, Ryan, he's working on this project, but let me tell you in addition what he did, right? So I think if there's one thing I can leave us with, especially as black professionals, is let's just stop assuming people are just going to know what our wants are, what our needs are, and where we're trying to go. We've got to advocate for ourselves. And that's something that our non-melanated folks do very well. They will advocate for themselves, and they will come out of college advocating for yourself. I'm like, you've been here 2 months. Wait a second, right? Wait a second. But I can't be mad because they get into where they need to go, right? And so we have to advocate for ourselves. We need to talk up ourselves. That's, like I said, when you have that network or whatever, it's not being braggadocious. It's not being arrogant. It's still being humble, but it's letting people know, like, no, I did this, right? Because it's really easy for people to start trying to take credit for what you did, right? And then over the years, over the months, you're like, wait a second, that was something I said in that meeting, right? So, I get off on the tangent. Next slide for me. Yeah, V. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Jessica. I'm sorry.
I think that it's in the imposter syndrome and the personal brand can be a conflict sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I think that what will happen is that, it's all consuming when you think about what's happening
Right.
when you leave the room.
Right.
Sometimes they're not talking about you at all. Anyway, don't talk about me, right?
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. We just couldn't, yeah.
So I think that sometimes I was told by a mentor once that you don't want your agenda to reach the room before you do.
Right.
And so finding that appropriate balance.
Yes.
And know your people. Find your people and know the people you're working with.
Yeah.
And try to figure out their value creation system.
exactly right.
Because I think that feeling not good enough, feeling like, oh, am I going to be found out that I don't know how I got here?
Yeah.
And then also trying to advocate for more.
It's exhausting.
Man, completely exhausting.
Yeah.
And then two, I think some leaders will be irritated by the paranoia.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to get a good performance review, or
yeah.
And then sometimes they will fulfill whatever the insecurity that you're like. Actually, as a matter of fact, you did miss some words in that last email type of a situation.
Right.
So
right.
I think that it's important to note that whatever our esteem issues or work issues can impact how we brand ourselves in the work setting.
That's so true. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Jess.
I'll absolutely piggyback.
Yeah.
Because I personally, so this is how I function. I'm going to do what I need to do.
Right.
I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm going to take pride in it.
Yep.
And whomever's on the receiving end, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm not here sitting making a list of all of these great things, and I struggle doing that. But at Edward Jones, you have to be that person.
Right.
Because there's not this babysitting type environment.
Yeah.
You can move and flow however you feel and choose.
Yep.
And if someone isn't paying close enough attention to you, they don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I had to learn the hard way to say, I am great, I am great, I am great, even though it's uncomfortable because I'm not that person. I just want to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
Take pride in what I do it well, and I'm okay with that.
Yep.
But you can't be, because you'll be
so
right over here in the corner.
It's such a good point. Oh my God, those are so good points. And I say it later, but it's knowing the type of organization you want to work for. Right. We're going to talk about interviewing in a little bit, but it's knowing the type of organization. So to your point, if that's the type of if that's the type of organization that is, and I know that it is, and that's uncomfortable for me to do, where I'm not going to be able to do it, that might not be for me, right? And so that's why when you're interviewing, with other companies, ask those questions about culture, mission, vision, because it could be a great job, but if that company culture is completely different than who you are, or even what you're able to do, it's not going to be a good match, and you're going to be stressed and unhappy your entire time you're there. So, Brad, you have a question?
So I did want to give some input as a hiring manager, as a manager.
Yeah.
From the brag sheet.
Oh yeah.
That you're mentioning, and then I wanted to ask with respect to personal branding for the introverts. All right. So I do want to say, as a manager of 25 people, it's a struggle to know what everybody's doing. I'm not going to know. And each person doesn't have one or two projects. Each person has 3 or 5 projects. Okay? So I can allow for those projects that rise to the top because the project is multi-year and multi-millions of dollars. I can allow the project to rise to the top because the vice president of our business unit has an eye on that. That's his pet thing. But what about the other 127 projects that are out there?
Right.
So if you are working on major or air quotes minor projects, it's imperative for us to keep our own list of things that we do, our contributions, so that we can end of year, end of quarter, be able to communicate. This is how I have been contributing to the team's success. That is a practice that I have to do because that's my crutch.
Right.
At the end of the year, I do ask for each one of my employees to bring me a list. You can present it however you want.
Right.
PowerPoint, Excel spreadsheet, Word document, I don't really care. But give me all the things that you contributed this year, because I probably have enough to detract from you.
Right.
So I'm going to give you an opportunity to brag on yourself.
Exactly.
Sell yourself.
Yeah.
So, or at least remind me what good things did you do. Because quite honestly, I don't know what I did over this year either.
That's it. It goes by quick.
But I do want to ask from an introvert standpoint. Personal branding and how we are presenting it immediately sounds like nails on the chalkboard. Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Felicia just said she's not good at listing the things. I guarantee I am not good at listing the things that I do.
Yeah.
or seeing the value in the things that I do.
Right.
So therefore, I think I don't make a list. Because I see somebody else's, I'll see Felicia do my list. That's a good list.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my list like, that's trash.
Yeah. Like, what is this? Yeah.
I may value what she's doing versus what I'm doing, just from my own, again, introversion and how I value my work.
For sure.
So then personal branding becomes, again, nails on the chalkboard, very difficult for a unfortunately seasoned introvert.
I understand.
So I pose this question: would it then be a good approach? I know in this audience we're talking more from a professional standpoint, as if we're working for a multinational major company and not necessarily an entrepreneur. I say again, not necessarily. But could we look at ourselves as entrepreneurs, no matter where we are, from a personal branding standpoint? And therefore, I have a product, my skill set, that I must sell to customers, multinational companies or consumers, whichever side of the fence you lie upon. And therefore, I must have my offerings on my resume/website. This is what I do. This is how I can do. Here's some examples of work I've done. Again, how I use the branch. Would that be a good approach?
That'd be an excellent approach. That'd be an excellent approach. And I think sometimes when we're in a huge or multinational organization, we just feel like a number, right? But even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if you don't have your own business, you still are an entrepreneur because you are selling yourself, right? You are branding yourself. So, Brad, I think that is a great point in terms of to help us remember that about ourselves, right? Because it's hard for me too. I'm an introvert, even though I'll be out here, doing these presentations. But I think that's also critical in terms of having a great relationship with your leader. Because I've had candid conversations with my leader earlier in my career. Hey, how I process things, I'm not just going to I'm just not going to speak and throw ideas out there. You all been in those meetings and y'all could be talking about something and someone says something, you're like, what? That don't make no sense, but they latch on to it. And then it's like the greatest thing since sliced bread, whether it's childhood trauma or, being the only black person in the room, I got to process stuff first. And so I've had conversations with my boss about that. And so I'll say, can I get the agenda beforehand, right? Can I get a little preview of what we're talking about, but at least letting that person know so they're not looking at you like Ryan wasn't paying attention or Ryan didn't say anything in the room. So it goes back to having that relationship with your leader. And if hopefully they're a good enough leader, they'll understand that. And if not, look for somebody else. Next slide for me. Nikki, one more slide for me. And so I think it's fair to say we all know about resumes, right? And so leveling up your resume, right? We want to make sure you're auditing your accomplishments. We want to make sure you're quantifying your results. Once again, it's letting people know by Ryan doing this, I increased this or I saved this. It's not, Ryan filed these. It's, Ryan filed these documents and it saved the company 30 hours in overtime or whatever, right? People have a very hard time with this. Tailoring your resume to the job you seek or want. Your resume is not a stagnant document that does not get looked at or does not get worked on. I call it a living, breathing document, right? And so it's being able to tailor your resume, not lying, but tailoring your resume to what it is that you're trying to do. Look at that job description, right? Look at that job description. Think about the things that you maybe did in your job or some of the transferable skills that you have and put that on your resume. So I'm a diversity and inclusion professional. If I want to go back into recruiting, I'm going to make sure I have my D&I stuff on there, but I'm going to also make sure I'm more or less highlighting my recruiting experience because that's what I'm looking to do. If I'm looking to go in a completely different skill set, let's say a training and development coordinator or whatever, I'm going to put things like this. I sat on a panel last week. I'm going to put those type of things on my resume to ensure that, he's in diversity and inclusion, but he also does have some presentation training. You see what I'm saying? So it's tailoring your resume. So at one point, I had 3 to 4 copies of my resume. I had a D&I resume. I had a recruiter resume. At one point, I was trying to get into like an HR business partner skill set. I had that type of resume. So always constantly and continuously be working on that to your point, Brad, that you mentioned, next slide for me, we'll talk about it. Taking that inventory of accomplishments, one more slide for me. Brag folder. Brad stole my thunder. You know what I mean? But it's good, right? It's having that brag folder, right? So think about it. Like your dream job suddenly becomes available. You got that chance to secure an interview for that promotion, and you realize you haven't updated your resume. But what did you do? Do you all remember what you did in February? Right? And from a work standpoint, right? And like even if it's something small or minute, put it in this brag folder, right? So it's easy to pull back when you're having that performance review or appraisal, when you're updating your resume. There's different projects that I did earlier this year. I'm like, I did do that, right? Because so many times it's just on to the next, right? We're on to the next type of society. So next slide for me, Nikki. So every time a colleague maybe gushes over your project or your contributions, or your boss asks you to take on a new responsibility, go ahead and drag that email over to that folder, right? Because it just helps you remember. Even if that compliment or activity isn't necessarily resume worthy, you know, scrolling through a folder full of flattering messages might get your gears turning on the achievements, right? And then lastly, plus knowing that there's one place to look makes that entire process feel that much less daunting. You know what I'm saying? So, Brad, you made a great point about the brag folder or brag sheet. So,
I think to help some people with that is probably plan it, like make it a schedule. Like
yeah.
Every Friday at 4 o'clock before I leave, I need to go through my week of accomplishments.
That's a good point.
Put them in a phone.
I think that's good. I'm gonna add that. That is good, Nikki, because I know you are. I know you are. But no, I think that's good because once again, we just get so caught up in our day in, weekend activities. I think it's good, like you said, Nikki, just going at the end of the week, like, what did I accomplish this week? And it could just be a quick little note, and then just go from there. This is something that I share with a lot of students that I'm working with that maybe don't have experience. So like, you know, if they're on a soccer team or they're in student government, it's just really a matrix of how you're able to show those transferable skills. So I talk to a lot of students like, I'm an athlete. I didn't get a chance to work on an internship. Well, if you're on the soccer team, you know, you have a fundraising skill because maybe you have to raise money, you know, for your team to go to spring break. Or, you know, you're in student government. You're making presentations to protect prospective students. You're organizing faculty and students. And so I was going to take this slide out, but I still think it's important because you can create a matrix like this as well, especially if you're trying to get into what might be a totally different career path and when you're trying to list out those transferable skills. All right, next slide for me. All right, I'll speed up a little bit. I know we're getting close on time. Quantify your lists and responsibilities as accomplishments. Obviously, your resume should reflect those accomplishments. It's going to help recruiters really picture the impact that you've made in your position. So I've been a recruiter. Recruiters are looking 50, 60 resumes a day, and oftentimes they're looking for key buzzwords, right? So making sure you're listing those as accomplishments versus, oh, I just did this is important. So here's some examples. I kind of alluded to this earlier. File documents in a new filing system. Doesn't this sound better? Revamped and reorganized innovative agency filing system to improve access to information, right? It's not a lie. It's not a lie. It's truth, right? You know, enter contact information of consultants into database. Or created an easy-to-use database of consultants using Microsoft Access in order to track overseas activities. So once again, created. I do. you know. You know. See, just come on, we work together. Let's get this hustle going. You know what I'm saying? But you see, created. So go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, is there a concern about the number of words too that's being used there, or it being too much content for someone to go through?
Not necessarily, as long as you're hitting those key action words. Created, you know, revamped, innovative, right? So I talk about this on the next slide. You know, we've always been raised resume should only be one page, right?
Right. Yep.
Let me preface. Let me put a caveat on this. Resume should really only be one page if you don't have any experience, right? If you're a college student coming out of college and you got a 3-page resume, that I don't understand, right? But for those of us, and once again, I'm talking to us in the room that have been in the workforce for quite some time, if your resume is only one page, I'm like, what have you done? Right? You know what I mean? So I want us, because so many times people struggle, like, I'm sorry, it's on 2 pages. That is okay. What becomes the problem if it's 2 to 3, 4 pages of fluff, right? If it's just stuff that just does not make sense. So I want you all, if there's one thing you can take away from a resume writing, is it's okay for it to be multiple pages if you've got that experience, okay? So yeah, thank you, Nikki. Using action verbs, right? I know it says use short, concise sentences. That seemed like a very long sentence just because of how it was formatted, right? But use short, concise sentence. Quantify when possible. Once again, I saved the money X. I made the money, company money X. Let's keep it easy to read. It says keep resume to 1 page, but that's why I said let's discuss. We just discussed, right? If you coming out of college, Sister Kim, when Jazzy comes out of college, her resume 3 pages. Now she's been working since she was 15 and she got 3 pages. That's one thing, you know what I'm saying? But, if Kennedy comes out, I'm like, Kennedy, what you doing with 3 pages, right, exactly. Use simple to read fonts. And I know, with resumes, so many people have different things. Like I've seen pictures on resumes. I've seen laminated. I think once again, it's knowing where you're applying. So if I'm a graphic designer, I love it. I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and this resume was beautiful. This person, it was like, I don't know, it was like 4K in color. I was like, the melanin was popping. I said, I see you, sis. I see you. It had that. It had, some little swirls on the side. It was busy, but for what she was trying to go into, it made sense. Now, as an HR person, if she was trying to become a recruiter, I was like, this is too much. You know what I mean? But she was trying to be a graphic designer. And so when I take that back to my graphic designer folks, they loved it, right? So once again, it's going back to knowing where you're applying and what you're doing, right? Obviously, spell check and grammar. Let's just make sure. Let's just make sure. Right. And listen, like I said, I'm transparent. I'm a nice recruiter. I believe like people make mistakes. I'd be like, oh, maybe it was late at night and they missed a thing. But I've worked with leaders in this I'm not lying. I've worked with leaders and no. They see a spelling error, no. I said, but let me pick on you, Lisa. Lisa got all this experience. No. At the end of the day, I can advocate for you and everything like that, but they're like, she doesn't have attention to detail. She misspelled the. You know what I mean? I'm like, so unfortunately, those type of people still exist, right? Everyone is not going to give you the same grace and consideration as somebody like me or some other recruiters that I work with. So read it out loud. Have someone else review it, right? Before. I'll review it. Send it to me. My email address is at the end of the presentation. All right. Some don'ts. I don't need to know any of this. And if someone says that you need to put this on the resume, that is against the law. I do not want to know your social. I think everyone knows how to put their social. But I don't need to know if you're married, all that kind of good stuff, right? I know back in the day we had the section of references. I will tell you, more often than not, now, me and Brad were talking earlier about like secret clearance and stuff, and yeah, they've got to talk to your neighbors and everything, but more often than not, an HR person really can't call another company to get like a reference on you. All they can really see is, did Jessica Harper work for Boeing? Yes or no? Because here's the thing, if someone from Boeing is like, well, yeah, Jessica wasn't a great employee, now Jessica has a lawsuit against them because it's preventing her from getting the job. So I say all that to say is more often than not, the references, they're just making sure that you worked at the company, right? So you don't need to put that on your You don't need to put that on your resume. I don't need to see salary requirements or past salaries. I don't want to see it. I don't need to give reasons for leaving. I don't need to see that you didn't like your boss, or I don't need to see that. And then certainly let's not lie on the resume because it will be found out. Next slide for me. This is social media. Let me go. Let's go. All right. How many of you are active on at least one social network? Huh? Like active. Facebook, LinkedIn. Yeah, you're on it, right? How many of us use at least one messaging app? Okay? You don't need to answer this, but who do you follow? Anybody have a blog or vlog? Go to the next slide for me, please. So, reasons to clean up your social media, right? Let's remember and know what is out there, right? Stuff isn't as private as sometimes we believe it to be, right? If you're putting things out there, I'm going to jump down to here, customize your privacy settings, right? Now, I'm the type of recruiter, when I was recruiting, I wasn't trying to go to people's Facebook pages or whatnot, because I just didn't want anything coming back on me like, well, Ryan saw me this, saw me out here, and then they can sue me because I'm discriminating against. But once again, there are plenty of people that are going out and looking at Facebook, looking at TikTok, looking at other things that people might do and finding a way to not hire that person, right? So let's not give them ammunition to do that, right? So everything that I put on my page, if it's public, I'm okay with people knowing, right? Now, if I have it locked down, then that's one thing, right? Remove content that's going to damage your reputation. Make reviewing your social media practice. Someone might tag you in something, like, nah, sis, don't tag me in that. You know what I'm saying? Like, wait a second. Like, I thought we said no phones. You know what I'm saying? Untag. You know what I mean? No. You know what I mean? So make reviewing a practice. Go way back. I mean, there have been people that have come to me. It's like, yeah, did you see back in 2014 such and such a thing? It's like, that's 8 years ago. Ain't nobody got time to do all that. But unfortunately, people are looking for a reason as to not to hire you. Don't give them that ammunition. And then highlight your accomplishments. Next slide for me. LinkedIn. How many of us are on LinkedIn? Are you on LinkedIn? Okay. All right, cool. I want to make sure everyone's on LinkedIn because it's an effective tool to network with others virtually. This is allowing people like myself, other recruiters to find you. And so you want to make sure you have a profile that stands out, that's going to entice professionals to contact you once they view your profile. Next slide for me.
Remember, don't post everything on LinkedIn.
Right. LinkedIn, it's professional. I do not need to. Exactly. 92% of employers are using social networks and media to support our recruitment efforts. From doing this, I can tell you this is true, right? We're looking at resumes that come through, but we're also finding or sourcing talent on LinkedIn. So if I'm looking for a compliance professional, I'm putting in keywords. And Jessica, if your profile is active, hopefully you would pop up. So then I can reach out to you. Yeah, you're actively employed, but I'm like, hey, Jessica, we've got this great opportunity here. Are you interested in talking to me? You want those type of people to reach out to you. Doesn't mean that you're going to make the move, but you want to be in demand, right? This is going to support your traditional job search documents, such as supports your traditional job search documents, sharing professional information beyond just your resume. Once again, thinking about branding is not just your resume; it's the totality of you. No, that's perfectly fine. Let's go. So on your profile, you want to make sure you have all these things, right? And I'll share this presentation with you guys, so don't worry about trying to take this all down. Next slide for me. Okay, so this is my profile. And once again, I'm not claiming to just be the expert on everything, but I've got my picture. I've got what I'm currently doing, where I've worked. I have information about me, strategic talent acquisition partner, and inclusion diversity champion. So if someone were to see that, they will automatically know he's got a TA background, but he's also an IND champion. I've got my experience here. I've been at Worldwide for 1 year and 2 months. I was at Edward Jones for 6 years. You can see some of the things that I've done. And I've got my education here. So when recruiters are looking for D&I managers or D&I professionals, hopefully I'm coming up because I've got keywords in my profile that will entice them to reach out to me. Make sense? So I tell people all the time, if you're going to be on LinkedIn, utilize it, right? Even if you're not checking it daily, make sure your profile is up to date and active. Next slide for me. We want to make sure it's 100% complete. You're more than 40 times more likely to turn up in the search if your profile is complete. So making sure you have all of this on your profile. Once again, unlike Facebook, you want your profile on LinkedIn to be open. We do not need your profile to be private on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is for professionals, right? So you're not putting personal information out there like I got 2 kids and Kennedy had a great cheer game or whatever. I'm not putting that on LinkedIn. I'm putting my professional accomplishments on here. So I want people to see that because I want people to be able to reach out to me about potential opportunities. So make sure your profile is open so I can find you, Kim, so I can find you, Nikki, so I can find you, Sid. All right?
I'm located 14 times a week.
Okay, you get the little right.
Okay.
I'm going to run through these really quick. How to network on LinkedIn to maximize your results. Let's go. I already talked about this. You 40 times more likely to receive opportunities through LinkedIn. You're more experienced than you think. Once again, the more information that you're going to provide on LinkedIn, the more people are going to find reasons to connect with you. Use your inbox. So don't be afraid to email someone on LinkedIn to learn about them and grow based on your personal results. Next slide for me. As you build your connections on LinkedIn, always customize your connection request with a friendly note. Hey, I see that we both worked at Jones back in the day, will you connect with me? Oh, we both went through the St. Louis Business Diversity Initiative, right? So just something really quick. So you're like, who is this stranger connecting with me? Form new relationships to join LinkedIn groups. As you build your connections, this is what I really love about LinkedIn. Comment on others' statuses, forward a job listing to a friend, right? Use LinkedIn to network. Next slide for me. Oh, this is one. Update your status early and often, right? Because the more you update your status, the more you're going to show up in searches, right? So don't be on LinkedIn just 4 times a year, because you'll be like, my profile is active, but you're not showing up because you're not on it, right? So let's make sure.
When you say update status, you mean like your, you know how you have a little quote or a little comment?
Yes. Exactly. Yep. Or comment on other people's status. So like, if you see me at an event, like be like, hey, great job. Or if like I see a project, I might be like, hey, Nikki, great job. I'm showing up. Like Ryan's been on LinkedIn. Use LinkedIn to learn. LinkedIn has a lot of great learning plans that you can go through. So, yep. Yes, free courses. One last thing is about networking. I know we've been in this virtual world for the last 2 to 3 years. Once you've connected with someone on LinkedIn, let's develop those relationships offline. Meet somebody for coffee, right? Meet somebody for lunch. Pick up the phone and have that conversation. All right, we're in the home stretch, the interview. How many of you are familiar with the elevator pitch? Good. Okay, so for those that might be watching, basically what an elevator pitch is a 30-second pitch that if someone were to ask about you, what are you going to say, right? So introducing yourself, your name, what makes you unique, what are your goals, and what can you offer? This is a pet peeve of mine. Once again, I'm a nice guy, so I get it. But when people ask you, well, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? And they start talking very personal, I don't want to know all that. I think it's great that you're involved, Grandmother Kim. I don't want to know that if I'm interviewing you, because I'm trying to keep everything as less personal as possible, because I'm not trying to get sued, right? So many times when people are like, well, tell me about yourself. Well, my name is Ryan Griffin. I like to roller skate. I'm watching this new show on Netflix called Dream Home Makeover. No. It's more, hey, my name is Ryan Griffin. Currently I'm at Worldwide Technology and D&I role. Been passionate about this work for the last such and such years. End, right? We want to know about you professionally. Then when you get the job, then we can talk about your grandkids and me skating and all that other good stuff, right? Next slide for me. Here are some job interview tips. Please know your skills and strengths. If it's on your resume, be prepared to talk about it. So many times, and like that's what I'm saying. When you review your resume, make sure you're looking at everything, because I've had people pick a bullet from like a company 10 years ago. I'm like, oh, that's still on there. But you want to make sure you're able to answer that question, right? Do your homework, master the phone interview, be prepared to ask that person questions. Why do you like it here? What is it about Worldwide Technology that interests you? Be a star. We'll talk about that in a minute, and then follow up after the interview. Next slide for me. Sid, yeah.
Okay, well, I do have a question.
Yeah.
So, somebody else that I've been involved with, background engineering.
Yeah.
So basically, you have like steps, like you have like 3 or 4 different types of interviews you have to do.
Yeah.
How do you work with?
So like when you say in the different interviews, like your phone interview, then like your first round interview, like your panel interview, is that what you mean?
Yeah, similar to that. So because
had a phone interview.
Yeah.
Then I had like an hour interview.
Yeah.
Then I had a whole day interview.
Yeah.
So that type of thing.
Great question, Sid. So glad that you brought that up. So yeah, I mean, there are companies, and then Sid, you probably have had to maybe do some presentations as part of your interviewing as well. So it all depends. So I think at the end of the day, regardless of the type of interview, it's still you're answering those questions in this STAR method, right? That person, whether it's they're interviewing you on the phone, in person, and I've been in those all-day interviews where it's like this person, this person, this person, they're all going to be asking you behavior-based questions because what behavioral-based interviewing is the best predictor of future success is how you did in the past, right? So they're going to be asking you questions about what you did in the past. And so when you're doing that, you want to make sure what was that situation, what was the task, what action did you take, and then what were the results, right? So every time that you're answering that question, whether it is in that phone interview or whether it is in that panel interview, what was the situation? I had to increase employee productivity by 50%. Okay, that was the situation. What did I have to do to complete that? And then how did I do it? And then at the end of the day, what was the result? So they're able to see the full life cycle of how you impacted that work, of how you impacted that project. Too many times when I see us interviewing, we just talk about, yeah, there was a project that we had to work on. It was very difficult, but at the end of the day, it turned out great. Give me more. You know what I'm saying? How did you do that? Were you just a team member? Were you just in the room? Were you just a note taker? And I think it's just a note taker, but were you just a scribe? I think, Sid, to your point, I think this will apply to everything. And what I think you need to approach every interview the same in terms of being prepared for that interview, regardless if it's just a phone interview, because that's the gateway, to the rest of the interview. So that answer your question, Sid? Okay. All right, next slide. Yeah.
So a question for you.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say to your point that said it comes back to like knowing your resume, knowing what you've done, and being comfortable with speaking to all of the situations that you've been in.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I was on a panel interview.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I would get the job after that because everybody in the room talked about situations for this particular job, and I had never worked in this particular job.
Right.
But one of the hiring managers said what made us choose is you were able to give a scenario for every situation. We're able to answer differently for every question that we ask you and give us a scenario. So I think it just comes back to being comfortable in knowing what you've done and being able to articulate that in that room.
Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And let me pick, before I go to you, B, let me pick on what you just said. Being comfortable articulating what you've done, right? Once again, we are humble because that's what we are called to be. But in that interview, they don't know you, right? So you have to let them know who you are. That sounds like from Black Panther. Let them know who you are. Was that Wakanda? Sorry. That was a line in Black Panther, right? But too many times I've seen us leave the interview and I've seen the hiring leader say, I still don't know what they've done because unfortunately that person has been uncomfortable talking about themselves, right? That is the time to talk about them. It's not arrogance, it's not braggadocious, but it's just like if you're dating someone, you're going to let them know who you are. It's the same with how they going to know that you just this bomb compliance professional, right? How they going to know you this great engineer said, right? They don't know you. They just know your resume. Anybody can put something on the resume, but how did you articulate it? So when you said that, I just had to pick up on that. So, great. Oh, Sid.
So just kind of piggyback. So, from a technical standpoint, like I said, know basically what you're trying to go for. Because basically, I had to know, I had to review really some old classes just to update you. Basically, they want to know, really, do you know your technical?
Do you know? Yep.
Do you know your technical background? Do you?
Yep.
And are you just bluff? Because basically,
perfect.
I said on interview panels where, I said, and some people did not know their technical background.
Yeah.
They put it on, but they couldn't apply to the questions that were being asked. So
Yeah.
That's another thing. If you are young, you don't have experience.
Yep.
You can always fall back on your education.
Exactly.
So
That's a really great point. That's a really great point. To your point, those technical interviews, because they want you to hit the ground running, right? There are some roles where you can speak in theory, you can speak to the hypothetical, right? But then there are some roles and I know there's so much more than this in engineering, but like a Java developer, network engineer, can you on day one come in and do this code, right? In D&I can talk about theory. You won't find out about me until like month 2, like he don't know what he talking about. He done lied. But said they gonna find you out day 1. He can't code this, you out the door. I at least got 30 days, right? Be like, babe, I got 30 days. We got this benefit. We got benefits. We okay, So know what you apply to. But that's a really great point. So that's a really good point.
Can you speak to, and you may be getting into
Click on
behavioral questions, practicing for interviews before the interview in order to prepare.
Yeah.
This is behavioral questions. Just to see the question part, you think it's just easy, but it's not easy.
It's not. It's for sure. Interviewing and looking for a job is like a full-time job in itself, right? You know what I mean? For those of us who have maybe been, furloughed, let go, and we've had to, or even if you just look for a job, it's a full-time job. And so practice, right? Don't assume, even if you are an extrovert and you're a people person, that you feel like you can turn it on. Because you get in that interview one-on-one, you be like, what was that? What did I do at the Federal Reserve 10 years ago? You know what I mean? So I think it's important to practice with a mentor. If you practice with family that's going to tell you the real. This is not the time where it's like everyone gets a participation trophy. You know what I mean? Practice with someone that's going to be like, yeah, it was kind of battery rundown from here. You started off strong and it was battery rundown, right? So practice with someone that's going to be able to give you some constructive criticism and constructive feedback. And then I always say practice in the mirror as well, because I know me just from people telling me my facial expressions can tell all. And so sometimes when I'm answering something or I'm talking about something, I might make a face and they'll be like, what's wrong with you, right? But it's something when you're practicing in the mirror, you can see that. You're like, okay, I got to check that, right? Especially when it comes to diversity and inclusion, because a lot of times they try to say, as soon as they talk about diversity, well, I want to make sure I hire the most qualified. I instantly get a face because whenever we talk about diversity, they automatically go there.
Yes.
So I have to have my poker face, right? So by practicing, right. No, not when I have the job, they get it. They get it now. Felicia. You know what I mean? I gotta get in there first. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. So I think just practice. And here are some examples here. You can Google and find a lot. What I like to tell people, I mean, if you maybe think of 5 or 6 projects or things that you've worked on through the course of your career, you can pull from them, right? Don't think like I've got a major initiative that I did at the Fed. There's some major projects that I did at Edward Jones, and you can weave them in to an answer, right? Tell me about a time you have to work with a difficult customer. Okay, yeah, there was somebody at Jones there. Tell me about a time that you have to implement a major project. Yeah, this project fits there, right? So when I'm preparing, I would have like 6 or 7, look at your resume, look back at that brag folder and see what you've done, because you can kind of plug and play, right? Next slide for me. So I wanted to make sure we put this in here because we are in the virtual world now, right? We were already kind of going there before the pandemic, but the pandemic has really made us a virtual world. And a lot of companies are still like, more than 40% of our workforce is virtual. I only go into the office 1 day a week. So we're still doing a lot of interviews online. And so there is an art to interviewing online through a computer screen versus face-to-face, right? So first, be familiar with the platform and technology. Every company does not use Zoom. Some people use Google Meet. Some people use WebEx. So if they're a good company, they're going to tell you what it is before so you can test if you have the system. But don't let it be a 1:30 interview and 1:20 you realize you don't have WebEx. And then you're struggling, right? So be familiar with the platform and technology. Do your preparation, right? Create a professional and quiet environment for your online interview. This is key, right? This is so key. Make sure you are in a room, in your house, library, whatever, that's quiet. A lot of these online tools have virtual backgrounds. I'm a big music person and I'm a big sports person. In my office, I got a picture of Michael Jackson. I got a picture of Beyonce. I got a picture of Steph Curry. But guess what? When I'm interviewing, it is blocked out. They don't need to know. They don't need to know because I want the attention to be on me, right? Like, oh, he like Michael. Oh, maybe he like Renaissance. Oh, well, listen. You know what I mean? Steph. So I have a virtual background of a conference table because I want all that attention to be on me, right? Then when I get the job, I can have the regular background. We can talk about Michael and how great he is, right? So make sure it's professional and quiet. Do a practice run. A lot of these online tools, you can record it and then get your timing right. Next slide for me. Make an impression. Let's look directly into the camera and not at the screen or monitor. If you're someone that has two screens, because I have to have two screens, I find myself when we first had the pandemic, I was looking at the screen over here, but the camera was here, so they were getting all this side profile. And this is not my best beard side, so it was not good. It was not good. It's a little patchy over here, you know what I mean? So it was not giving, right? So look directly into the camera. So I finally figured that out, but I still found myself, it was my VP was like, Ryan, we keep seeing the side of your face. My bad. Don't be afraid to ask for a question to be repeated if you didn't hear it. This isn't a face-to-face interview either. If you didn't hear the question, ask them to repeat it, or if they need to say it a different way, because you want to make sure you're answering it correctly, right? Make sure the sound system can be less than perfect, so speak clearly. Once again, be aware of your facial expressions and your posture. And then, this is why I tell people, this is a face-to-face interview too. Pause before answering a question. Too many times when we're interviewing, we feel like, tell me about a time you worked with a bad employee. Well, take a pause. It is okay to sit and think about it. Yeah, it don't need to be a minute, but it's okay to spend 10 to 15 seconds thinking about it. Or you know what, if you need more time, I repeat the question. Tell me about a time. That's a really great question, right? It's okay to take a minute. Don't feel like you have to answer immediately, and if you don't do it, you're gonna not get the job.
I let them know that I had a legal pad and a pen.
Yeah.
And that I was going to be writing the questions they asked
to
minimize them repeating.
Yep.
As well as taking notes from the things that they. So I let them know if you see me looking away or writing, this is what I'm doing.
Yep.
So that I can, have the sharpest, most concise.
I think that's good because I'm the same way. Writing things down just helps me remember, and I think that's okay. Just tell them what you're doing because I'm telling you guys, and I know I'm on camera, so it's only so much, but I mean, sometimes some of these people, some of the things that they say about interviews and why they didn't pass some people, it is infuriating. It is so infuriating, right? And I be fighting the good fight for us, but to your point, Felicia, it's okay. Be like, hey, I'm just going to be taking some notes because I want to make sure I'm answering the question fully, and more often than not, it's going to be fine. Just let them know. So we're at time. Oh, we're probably over time. Sorry, Brad. But go to the next slide for me. Just any questions? I loved how we kind of flowed through the presentation, but any last questions? Thank you guys for being such an engaging audience. I hope this was helpful to you all. I enjoyed myself. So any questions for me? Hey, if you go to the next slide, Nick, you go to the next slide. Boom. Email me. Listen, I'm the type of person, I'm trying all of us to win, right? I want everybody to eat, like let's all win. So, email me to the point I made earlier. If we want to go into more detail about interviewing, some mock interviews, resume writing, I'm more than happy. Brad gave me a great idea when I was talking to him earlier about maybe doing some YouTube. That's my big brother. He always educating me. You know what I mean? So we'll see. But once again, thank you so much for having me. So, yep. Yeah. Thanks, B.
Bless you, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Really, really appreciate it. So I hope, I want to say I hope, I'm pretty sure everyone got something good from this session. Now, I would ask for us to review, but I'm not going to be a professor or a teacher here. But I do want to encourage us to let's continue to look into how we develop our career. Because yes, we do. Yes, we do. I really love us. I love us. We do rely on God for everything.
Yes, we do.
But we want to make sure we represent God in every way that we can. And you being the best professional you can, and people know you're a Christian, that makes people then look at your God and say, okay. Their God is good. because I can see how your God is working in your life. Because I can see what He's doing with you, and I can see how your career is growing, and so on and so forth. Let's continue to grow our careers and be the best professionals that we can, whether we are working for someone else or whether we are an actual entrepreneur. So again, let's clap it up one more time for our presenter today. Lots of great information. And yes, to your point with respect to us winning, the idea of YouTube or Facebook, however so you want to do so, it's just all of us winning. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So certainly want to help my brother be the best that I know he can be. And I would like to see more of these topics, or see even these topics taken out and fleshed out a bit more, even on Facebook and or YouTube, whichever venue or both venues that you prefer. So any last questions from anyone else? All right, so I do want to at least give credit to Ms. Felicia and Ms. Jessica for setting this up.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so there are 4 of these planned throughout the next 12 months. This is the first one and a great one. I don't know what the rest of them are. They're going to have to lift the bar. Yeah. They raise the bar. This brother knocked it out the park. Yeah. So, but to Ms. Felicia and Ms. Jessica, they've done a great job putting these 4 together, including this one, setting up everything here today, as they will throughout the year, but also letting you all know about it, promoting the event, and making sure that let me say it differently. You can have the best vision, but without a plan, it's just a dream. Yeah. So coming to these 2 with a great vision and saying, hey, I think we ought to do this, that's great. But if they did not put feet to pavement, we would be sitting here staring at each other, and that's not good at all, or not here at all, okay? So thanks to each one of them. Thanks to them both. Thanks to each one of you for attending here today, and for those that are attending with us online. You all do me one last favor before we leave here. Will you make sure you share this with your friends and family on your own pages, in your own networks, in your own way? This is something good to put on LinkedIn. This is something good to put on Facebook and put on Twitter and put on your IG page to give them the link so that they can see and prayerfully be encouraged and be empowered. All right? So thank you all one more time. Let's clap it up one more time for this entire session. Yeah. You all have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. God bless you, and we will certainly, if you would, tune in with us, keep up with us on our website, social media pages, so you can see when we're going into our next empowerment series. All right. God bless you. Cool.